had
It didn't
several.
work, or?
I don't know. I mean, the sound's recording, so it works. Okay, so we had several different interesting news coming up this week. I think let's start with the follow up from past weeks. In fact, shout out to Jeremy Relly about the cruises. We talked about it a few months ago how one of the biggest cruise ship in the world is about to start working. So it has a capacity of, as you can see, 7,600 people in it. This is what it looks like. It's it's a magnificent beast, right? But the more important part is that it basically it's kind of advertised as a sustainable cruise ship because they have, for example, instead of using diesel or anything else, they're using LNG, so it's liquefied natural gas to fuel the whole thing. They can connect to the ports and so on and so forth. However, right, so the article that you see here kind of talks about the sustainability of it. How can it actually be sustainable? Because previous studies, for example, showed that in terms of CO2 emissions, um, flying, so per kilometer CO2 output of a plane is half that of per kilometer output of CO2 if you take a cruise ship. So that's not a very positive amount. But I feel like, right? So these studies are from past cruise ships, perhaps because if you more people on a cruise ship, right, then and obviously also right now you're running LNG, right? LNG is supposed to output a whole lot less sort of variety of different gases that are dangerous for the atmosphere, for global warming. That it might be less, right? Nobody quite knows. I mean, there is advertisements that this is going to be sustainable, but there isn't an actual scientific study of that putting everything together, how much a food output, whatever, everything together will be to really make this thing work.
So, are you saying that's pretty much a joke, that article, to saying that a cruise is sustainable?
No, well, the article is actually critical, right? It goes into sort of the past studies, and it shows that, for example, LNG gas can also be dangerous, right? For example, LNG leaks apparently, so that just goes straight into the atmosphere and basically is pure methane in a way. So no, the article is quite critical. I'm just saying the question is nobody quite knows what this is going to be like, right?
But that there are good intentions in the cruise industry to make cruise more sustainable, or it's at least a try, right?
I think it's a
That's
try. I mean, also important enough, the director of the company that built the cruise, right, said basically that there was criticism that they're using LNG, and he said back 10 years ago when they were designing the ship, this was kind of the most sustainable fuel they could find. So,
mm-hmm.
so right, it's not like building a car. Even though, right, you can, still quite a few years of, research and development before it really starts. But this thing was designed 10 years ago, right? So, whatever they design now could be a whole lot of level. Unfortunately, though, it will be released, let's say, again in 10 years. So, uh,
Sorry, can you repeat what LNG means?
liquefied natural gas.
Ah, yeah, true. Thanks.
So it's just you take, so it's kind of the same gas that we all kind of use, right, for heating and so on in Europe, and you can liquefy it by, compressing it, so that it's
Cool.
you can have more of it in the same amount of space, basically. So yeah, I mean,
Very safe.
uh, I would be excited when a ship like this comes out with the hydrogen fuel. I mean, it's a new kind of thing, right? But technically, when you burn hydrogen, the only thing that comes out is H2O. Sorry, yeah,
That's what your
so
dad talked
O
about
two,
for the
O2, just
cars, right?
just oxygen. Yeah, for the cars, there's already cars that fuel run on this. So I mean, and it's theoretically they say that it's safe, right? Because people used to be worried about it that if it
Mhm.
leaks and it will blow up, basically the whole ship just turns into dust, especially the amount of hydrogen they might have in there. But still, I mean, the cars are becoming safer and safer, so why not use it in in cruise ships?
Shout out to the cruise ships.
Yeah, exactly.
Please
Seventh,
make
it's
them
five times bigger than Titanic. 5 times bigger.
holy.
Yeah.
All right, all right. Let's move on from the cruise ship. What's our next thing we have?
Well, we have. I mean, let's jump it right into it. We have
Yes.
sort of the deal making and the development pipelines. So Recent news showed that basically US has reached like a record high ever in terms of new hotels in development and slash rooms. The last time this a near close to that number was reached was in 2008, right? So right before the financial crisis in 2008. Maybe that's also a sign. But basically right now, so the last quarter, 2023, there were 5,964 hotels in development, right? So
But
they're
you
gonna be.
mean, sorry, let me jump in. Is it in development means they started to be built or they were
Yes,
planning to
exactly.
be
Yeah,
built?
yes,
Or,
they started to be built.
okay.
And 693,000 rooms, in those 5,900 something hotels.
Holy.
Uh, so there is a number somewhere where they talk about how 2008 they had, I think, 5,000 something, but it was still yet below the sort of 2013 number. And it's expected that this number is also going to grow in 2024, right? So this is quite an interesting data point, and the reason for
And
it theoretically is what they say. Like it's an assumption, right? But is that because interest rates in the United States have decreased, right, by 25 points? So people have basically said, okay, we can finally take the loans that are affordable for us, and they've started a lot of projects with that.
yes. I mean, okay, I think this is a lot, and I'm kind of curious or like surprised that they started already end of 2023 because in 2020 or like at least midterm or beginning 2023 that right interest rates were really very high still, and investors and developers were quite weary about starting new projects because it was more of a waiting phase in that term in that sense. But it kind of makes sense. I mean, kind of goes together with the next article that we found
Mm-hmm.
as well, right? About how 2024 the global hotel industry expects to see more developments. So yeah, they see a surge of 15 to 25%. I mean, I think the investment or hotel investment industry has had quite a hard time for the past few years, seeing pandemics and increase in interest rate. But JLL really projects a big increase in development for the next year. Um, they see a potential of 58 billion um, favorable financing coming up in the next year. Again, I think similar reasons than what you say why that is happening. Interest rates are more stable. Also, the expiration of private equity funds prompting a capital development. So more investment coming in, that money is there and it needs to be deployed rather sooner than later. Through to COVID, there have been investment breaks, so to say, or deferrals. So because money was expensive, hotels weren't renovated for quite a long time, or two reasons. Interest rates increased, so money was expensive, no renovations in hotels, but also no revenues during COVID. So hotels weren't renovated. So now you have many assets which are kind of like distressed and not in good shape. So, the sharks are waiting to take over or to make value add projects. So yeah, it looks like the hotel investment market is slowly recovering.
Or if we go by just one data point, it could be that the financial crisis is upcoming and everybody's too excited, and then next year is going to be zero development, like it happened in 2008.
What do you mean? Expand on that.
Right. It's a bit of a joke, but the article that I showed before, right, it said that last time such high numbers were reached was around 2008, right, before the financial crisis. So you could make a false correlation, right? Oh, such high numbers, okay, must be a crisis coming up, right? But that's not it's not factual. It's just a joke. I think, but also for me, it was also interesting that sort of basically the projects that are mostly being developed are upper mid-scale, right? So it's still sort of a middle-class market, kind of maybe what we talked about, like what was it, Garner, the new chain of IHG, and so on and so forth, right? Those sort of it's addressing the middle of the market, right? The majority of travelers. So it's not in the budget, it's not too high end, While on the other
Yeah.
hand, right, we've seen similar data, for example, for United Arab Emirates, for Saudi Arabia, where it's
Mm.
upper scale, like all the way up that the most projects are in, right? So 5 star and
Mm.
so on and so forth. So, I mean, this sounds more healthy to me when you when you're developing for the majority of the people and not, 3 billionaires who might stay in your hotel. And, I was exaggerating, but
Get.
so yeah.
I know what you mean. I mean, I just looked at the news again, and I think another reason why I think right the market or the investment market has been down. Not many deals have been made because investors and owners are just waiting, and it's very interesting. So I spoke to a few investment funds, and everybody's just waiting, and certain deals have been on the market for quite a long time, and the companies have made offers for those deals, and especially portfolio deals. So I think for the past 2 years, buyers and sellers have been analyzing the deals, and they somehow they know now the deals really well, especially portfolios. So I think also in the next year, or in this year, sorry, the portfolio deals might be made, meaning that's a big amount of investment just coming up, or big transactions just at one point. So I think that impacts a lot these assumptions as well. So big transactions, because they had a lot of time to analyze them in
So
the
in a
past.
nutshell, people's perception of the market has changed, right? Me and you were
Yeah.
talking about how you were visiting real estate conventions and how people were very weary, and maybe now something has unlocked itself and people feel recovered and have enough received enough vitamin D after sitting at home for 2 years, so that they feel like they can finally buy a new hotel.
I mean, it has a bit of, right, like what we saw in the news this week. It looks like the projections are a bit more positive. People are a bit have more trust in stable interest rates, and also there has been, yeah, money needs to be deployed, so to say. So
Yeah, I can
they need
just
to
have it
do
in the bank
something with their
account.
money.
Fair enough. I mean, on that piece of news, we can move on to the next thing, which is
Let's go.
quite similar. So Hilton has basically created a new program. I tried to look this up to really fact check this, and I couldn't find anything else. Maybe there are some minor operators out there that are doing this, but Hilton now has a program called Unlocking Doors, right? So it's a program for hoteliers, or in brackets wannabe hoteliers, who want to open up a Hilton. You can join the program. I'm sure there is some sort of a vetting process, right? And then you become part of a network through this sort of program, where you can get educational things so basically learn how to run a Hilton. B, you can
Same.
become part of a yeah, learn. Well, who needs that? Let's go. Now, second is obviously networking, right? You meet other people who unlock doors. Then C, which perhaps is the most important, is you can get access to financing to open.
That is good.
I assume buy a hotel or renovate a hotel, right, to make it a Hilton or whatever. I guess part of the Hilton brand. And this is basically done by this Foro Holdings. So it's a kind of a company that basically brings in right around 76 different banks, and it allows you to basically get a quote from all those banks to see who is willing to finance whatever project you have, right? So here you can type in whatever you want, and let's get started. Let's go. uh, and then they kind of question you. And point is basically you're part of that network. I'm not sure what the interest rates will be like, right? Because this looks like usually when you can just choose an amount, it kind of is associated with really high interest rates. But I mean, maybe not in this case. And I mean, to me, the interesting part is this is the first program of its kind, at least amongst the big players, where they're basically kind of recruiting their own operators and owners and partners. So
Yeah, I actually think that's quite it's a really smart move to support um, hotel investment in that sense. And it's a way of expanding Hilton's, right? It's just complete new development strategy. It's super, super interesting. I would love to know what the conditions are, and how much money they're actually financing. And
I mean, here it goes. So, right, I think the point is, right, Hilton is not giving the money themselves, right? So you're gonna have to go through this program. I'm sure maybe there's some sort of a discounted rate because Hiltons are very
Mm.
low risk, I suppose, right, compared to if you just do your own hotel by yourself.
Yeah.
So I imagine it would be kind of, different for
Yes.
per person, right?
But
But yeah,
it's much easier to get financing if you, let's say, you already have a contract. Let's say you already know that Hilton is going to run the business exactly.
yeah.
Banks are more willing to give you loans if you have an existing lease
Effectively,
contract.
effectively, you get an offer, right? Maybe prior to
Mm.
even applying for a loan. This program, sort of going through this program, they already know who you are, right? They already know you're part of that program. You know the four holdings, and all you have to do is just fill out the documentation. You get an offer. I assume maybe below market average, right? Like I said, like we
Hopefully.
discussed, and then there you go, right? So you can fill out the cool questionnaire here, and boom, you get 8.6 million to build your own.
If you want to do it,
Let's do it now live.
let's do it. Let's do it after.
That's all right.
Okay.
I have other goals in the near future. I think not building Hiltons.
Yeah, no.
But yeah, so I mean, it's a simple piece of news. I think for those who are interested. Unfortunately, right now it's only available in the United States, right? So you might have to move to the United States to get that program, but perhaps they might get a partnership in Europe as well, or wherever. So that's that. Okay, next piece of news. You had something interesting for us.
Yes. I mean, so I read this headline: Rise of Urban Resorts in Post-Pandemic Travel. I mean, the gist is pretty much that they want that there's more luxury in urban areas, and that they want to create more resort-like hotels in urban areas because of people do like workations and they work and travel at the same times. At the same time, an interesting location for that mentioned in the article is Rome, and they're talking why this is beneficial, but also why it is challenging. But actually, why I took this article is because I read this remark of one of the guys on the panel discussion. Says it is remarkable that the hotel schools have convinced students it is better to sit in a windowless room looking at Excel sheets than to travel the world. And I know this might be like polarizing to take it out, just to take that out of the article, but it just kind of like it bothered me somehow. So I wanted to talk to you about kind of that sentence as well. Because I have had many discussions with kind of the previous generation
Yeah.
about the hospitality industry and how the young people don't want to work in the hospitality industry anymore. And I think this is exactly what it says, right? It says people would rather sit in a windowless, or young people, talented people, would rather sit in a windowless room working on Excels. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what's happening. But we also know why. Because you make more money. And you can travel, to Taiwan and work there on Excels, and you still travel the world, and you can actually support your life looking at Excel files. Because the most that's what I think is the issue with the hospitality industry, because owners and investors make a big chunk of the money that in previous years owners and operators would be the same person. So actually today, operators, people running the hotels, need to give 20% of their revenue to owners, right? And that was distributed before amongst employees and owners. So yeah, it's not hospitality schools that are convincing students to work on Excel files. It's students and employees being smart enough understanding what is more financially interesting.
I mean, he also puts in the same statement that we need to become more exciting for the new generation. So there is a bit of a self-awareness there. But this just I was thinking if to put this article for this week, but I haven't because it's kind of old news. Is in Germany there was a study for average salaries for in the hospitality sector, and they're all below almost every other industry. right? So,
But
to keep it polite here, right? You can go out there, do data science, do account management, you can do product ownership, make triple of what you're making at a reception desk, and express yourself better, and actually travel, because it's an absolute bullshit that you can travel while working in hotels, right? It's a
yeah,
myth that you get told. In fact, you end up getting stuck in hotels during holiday seasons, working when everybody else is having a holiday. So yeah, I mean, to me, it's a quite an obvious choice when you have one, obviously.
but what do you think, right? Like, I want to kind of get deeper to the source. Why people don't want to work in hotels anymore? And I feel
Because
everybody's so surprised
there's
that
better
we're not having
alternatives.
that.
I mean, first of all, right? Maybe a lot of industries can make that claim, right? So there's just less of us young people, right? Because of demographic shifts, right? So therefore, there's less people in industries. So prior to that, so let's say 1960s, there was a lot of people in a lot of different areas, especially sort of not in the bigger cities, and they would need jobs, and there we go, hotels would provide them, but that's not there. So that's just a simple less amount of people number, right? So maybe it creates a perception that people don't want to work in hotels, but it's just maybe that there's less people working.
Mm.
And second, I mean, as we said, what's the attractive part? You have to work for
I,
20 years to become a GM, to earn minimum wage while you're at it, working 12, 13 hours. I mean, what's the well, me and you both know there's such better alternatives. So that's why during COVID, several people have left the industry, found better jobs, and don't want to come back because
yeah, but I
why?
do think it has to do with the separate owner and operator structure. I really think that is a big impact
In
because
what way?
hotel has become such an interesting investment product, right?
Hmm.
And so actually the pressure to be profitable is so much higher if you have a separate owner operator structure than if owner and operator would be the same, right? Because
But
so
but that would be the case, Miriam, if that would be always the thing, right? Most hotel operators, or the big hotel chains, do franchises and management contracts, right? They don't own most of the buildings. I mean, at least since the 80s.
now, but that's what I mean. And I think since that has been growing, pressure on hotel salaries have been so much higher than before. And I think this is where, I guess in the 80s, that trend started as well, right?
Okay, so you're saying, let's say, um, well, the hotel chains, it is an M. I think they own most of the buildings, right? Or via an investor group, so they kind of operate the buildings from a perspective that it is their building.
Mm.
Therefore, people would be more happy there because the operators have more control of the HR practices. Is that the case?
I'm that would exactly that's what I am saying. But I think for companies, professional big companies, Citizen M, they still have separate companies, right? They have opcos and propcos, so they kind of still operated by different people and then negotiate between each other, I guess. But I'm also saying that previously, let's look at a mountain resort in Austria, for example, run by a family. They own the whole building, they take care of the building, but they also run the place. So actually, those 20% that usually would go otherwise to an owner if somebody else would own that hotel
Mm-hmm.
goes directly into the owner's pocket, meaning they will take care of the building, they'll take care of their employees, and they'll pay them accordingly. If I'm only an operator and I know I need to pay 20% of my revenues to an owner, I have much less room to take care of my employees, to to get them better, right? So actually, you just by separating operations and ownership, you have less leeway and money available to pay your
I mean,
staff.
there's also, right, more people making money here, right? So there's a lot of, that is what you're saying,
Exactly.
right? More stakeholders to that take part of the pie. But I mean,
Exactly.
what's the solution here, right? Because I mean, you still, a lot of owners don't want to operate, right? They are investors into real estate, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know if that
But
can be changed drastically.
to me, that's the source of the issue. I don't have a solution. I just point out.
Yeah, no, fair enough, right?
So helpful,
That's
Mariam.
part of
Thank you.
no, that's part of productive culture. I remember being told in various hotels and from colleagues I also worked with in different other hotels, right? That it's always there's a culture of you're not supposed to raise the issue unless you have a solution, right? But sometimes you see the problem and maybe you don't know the solution, and that's part of
Exactly.
needing to actually talk about that. So, fair enough.
All right.
We'll see. We'll
And
see. I mean, right? I'm sure there's, but
mean,
that's also a
I am
positive.
part of the problem, so I
No, no,
don't
no.
want
But
to.
to me, this is the best opportunity ever as well, right? For people to come in and offer hospitality products that are exciting to hotel school graduates, versus let's say boring companies that have the same way of working for the past 50 years, right? So
I mean,
the best survive.
actually,
Natural selection of companies.
actually,
So.
the Hilton solution that you proposed just before, to me, is a solution into that direction, because people who want to run hotels get opportunities to be owners as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hilton will still, or like people financing it will still get a cut, but the cut will be smaller. They're actually supporting people to run their own business, which
Mm-hmm.
is very different than just operating it. Yes! Oh my God, okay. Now we can move on.
Well, there we go. Right, we found a solution. So it's good we discussed it. I mean, we have a next piece of news, and it's a NSHR report. So it's an OTA, and the OTA basically said, "Oh, how about we talk about the current trends at the moment?" And they created a report that, in a nutshell, summarizes that. Let's say, put it this way: OTAs are currently actively trying to take away market share from direct bookings. So let me show you
That's
quickly.
nothing new, right?
Yeah, but they're doing it now even more aggressively than they ever did before. So unfortunately, I don't have the screen there, but that's okay. So basically, you have Hotel Industry Trends Report 2024, and in there, they talk about how, first of all, this year, 2023. OTAs have managed to take away 3% of direct bookings. So, I mean, it's not a big number, but given that some of them already own 60-80% of some hotels' traffic, that's already, it's like chipping away at an ice block, but in the end, there'll be nothing left. And more interestingly, through marketing campaigns, the sort of cost of ads have doubled, specifically performance marketing ads. So on Google, on Meta, like Facebook, right, on Instagram. So for example, Google ads. So if you specifically ads towards very unique hotel brands. So, Accor or, any other big company, I'm sure they maybe also target the smaller ones. Let's say you go on Google, you type in, I don't know, whatever hotel you like that you find in some city, boutique villa, something during 4 Seasons or something, and basically all the OTAs will try to make sure that their page result is above the actual direct marketing website or direct website of that hotel. And fair enough, they try to do that for a while, but there's been such high competition between them all now that they've doubled. For example, for Google Ads, the prices for specific clicks for specific hotels have gone up 62%, and for Facebook, 128%. So it more than doubled. So yeah, I mean, they're effectively trying to eat away at the hotel sort of the direct marketing channels. Now, to me, it sounds like a really useless way of spending money, perhaps. I mean,
It just sounds like it's gonna explode soon. No, it feels like it's coming to a point where also OTAs are kind of putting each other's rates higher just to be the best OTA. There must be some kind of alternative for hotels to sell their own rooms by themselves without having to pay 20% to some affiliation, no? I mean, I know that hotels have been doing so much for the past, I don't know, 10 years to try to get more direct bookings, but there must be something.
I mean,
Because that just sounds ridiculous now.
for example, Airbnb has stopped advertising on those kind of channels because they made a test from one day to another, they basically turned off the advertisements for Airbnb, right? So it used to be that, and you can still go on Google right now and you say booking, right? So we can do that right now live. If you go on Google, right, and you say I want to see, let me just zoom that in. Okay, perfect. So I want to go for booking. Yeah. So let's go. No, whoops, not booking directly,
Wanna go
but
for booking?
no, I want to find booking, my favorite OTA channel, right? And usually, what would happen is not anymore, I guess, but you can see here booking would be on top result. However, it would be advertisement. So they would try to grab traffic away from so making sure basically that you can actually get booking. And I think booking stopped that too now because Airbnb found out the same thing. Effectively, if people are looking for specifically for the booking.com website or for Airbnb or for, let's try HRS, there you go. I guess they've learned. Basically, they would spend millions, I think hundreds of millions, like Airbnb, of just trying to do ad clicks for their own websites, because other websites would basically also try to advertise for Airbnb and steal traffic. But people, if they're looking for Airbnb, they're not going to look for some random thing that looks like Airbnb, but it isn't. They might click on it and go back and still go for Airbnb, right? And so they completely stopped that type of advertisement because it didn't actually generate any actual additional clicks. Now, what they're trying to do is, right, if you look in for Hotel Berlin, for example, you would theoretically get a bunch of ads, right? So obviously you're not gonna find. Well, I mean, you can find Hotel Berlin. That's interesting.
Yeah.
But basically, they would then, if you have a very specific hotel brand, there would be just ads on top, right? On top. But I feel like if somebody has been looking for a very specific hotel, let's say, if I want to go Motel 1, right? I actually have ad block. Might be blocking all the ads in here, but basically, then you would most likely find an OTA channel, right? That's trying to steal the traffic. But to me, it seems like it's ridiculous, and hotels shouldn't be worried about it too much. If you have a good website and you have a brand that people are actually looking for, they're gonna skip right past that advertisement for Booking.com, which Airbnb proved with its own case. If you have a good enough brand, then and basically just you see, there you go. The next one is Motel on Booking.com, but still number one result is Motel 1. And the Google search, the engine as well is better at identifying sort of the results that you're looking for. So, for example, if you looked at this hotel chain before, it will also show you that hotel chain again above, right, at any other result. So everybody has custom results. So to me, this whole thing is just wasting money. Just make sure you advertise correctly on your website and you have the same prices as everywhere else. Some hotel chains and some hotels still do this thing where they have higher prices on their website than on a Booking or on Airbnb or everywhere, because they assume that guests are stupid and they're gonna basically just try to, they're gonna try
I know
to.
they're trying to put the amount of commission that they need to pay on top of their room rate, but that has stopped. I think that has stopped quite. I mean,
people, hotel chains still do this, where you go to their website and they have a higher price because they assume that you are gonna be someone who's like, whoa, I'm ready. I just want to book here directly. So they assume they're gonna make extra money on you, but actually, all you're gonna do is lose customers. So yeah, so I'm not personally worried about this. This is a fight maybe between OTAs, perhaps, but not direct bookings, and also 3%.
And hotels.
Sorry.
And hotels. I mean, hotels have been trying to kind of get around with pricing parities and things like that for quite a while. I'm excited to see how it's going to change. I'm pretty sure sooner or later there must be something happening that can increase direct booking. But all right, let's move on.
Let's do that. Okay, so what we have here is, I think, the last piece of news that what you've brought us is Cuba.
Cuba wants more Russian tourism.
There you go.
So, Cuba ambassador anticipates a 35% rise in Russian tourists.
Just one second. This guy here, he just looks absolutely happy. Just absolutely Just not, he's nothing. He doesn't need anything else. That's it. Perfect picture. Sorry, keep going.
Yeah. So how is that happening? How can they increase that number? So Russia has been introducing direct flights from Moscow directly to Cuba, 13-hour flight, and the MIR credit card for transactions facilitating travel. I mean, what is the MIR credit card?
It's called Mir. Basically, Russia is, even before the war and before sanctions was trying to was basically trying to kind of create their own credit card systems because they thought they're gonna be gonna be blocked by the people. Basically, Visa, Mastercard, right? So there's now sanctions in place where it's more difficult for you to use Western banking offers. So, for example, you can't just transfer money from a Russian bank account to a European bank account because it's not anymore the case, and because of sanctions. And so they developed their own credit card system called Mir. I think it was in the end just sort of Chinese option that was rebranded, as far as I know. And with that you can still kind of use a credit card, an actual physical credit card, and not worry about the fact that you don't have suddenly you can't do transactions with credit cards, because it was obviously a big concern before. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking already about implementation. So if you want to use your Mir credit card in Cuba, that means that all the Cuban restaurant needs to be compatible with that if you want to pay in restaurants and hotels.
Yeah, I mean that's what it's saying, right? Is that they offering that credit card now in Cuba?
I guess.
I mean, look, Cuba is being really smart. So here, Russia long-term political ally of Cuba has also introduced its Mir credit card for use on the island. That's perfect. We've had the same very similar news last week, literally, where North Korea has made a deal with Russia as well, where you can have a $750 package to go to a ski resort in North Korea, all inclusive.
Yeah, that's what we had.
Yeah, right. So this is the same thing. I mean, Russians used to be a really big market source for Europe, for Turkey, for Europe, for all these countries, right? I mean, there's always like this thing where in a 5-star hotel you can always find some Russians, with their fur coats, kind of like a sort of a bit of a stereotype, and now they obviously can't go there, or they can, but it's a whole lot more difficult, right? It's more expensive. For example, to fly to Europe now, you have to go to Istanbul, and then from Istanbul to Europe, and tickets are in thousands of euros, right? And it's not really, it's mostly revenue management. It's not because of, extra destination. And obviously they need to go somewhere, and Cuba is just basically saying, look, come to us. So
exactly. I mean, tourism is vital for Cuba, right? Also in terms of importing food, fuel, medicine. Yeah, so I guess it's a smart move.
I mean, Cuba was always a pretty famous destination for Russians, I think, because Cuba has always been seen as a friend. Since I know even my father was during the time when he was my age, and he would serve in the military because it was mandatory. People would either go to Afghanistan, serve in Russia, or they could potentially serve in Cuba. And there was movements of internal Soviet Union movements for the youth would be let's get together, let's go to Cuba and help them out. So they would organize groups of people to go to Cuba, live there for, I don't know, month, year, whatever, and volunteer, do things and stuff like this. So Cuba has been always kind of on the list, right? But this is now maybe this is going to increase, right? So you can see already 185,000 people, and this will rise. So good for them.
The second most tourists in Cuba are Cubans who don't live in Cuba anymore.
That's interesting, actually. I would imagine they would be worried to go back, but I suppose not anymore, right? It's not like North Korea.
No, I don't think.
Yeah.
All right.
Fair enough.
Cool.
I think on this note, we've concluded our news. Thank you very much, Miriam.
Thank you, Mish.
What do you think of our background?
I don't know where you found that cut again, but gorgeous.
It's ChatGPT, all of it. All right. Thank you very much, and I guess